everyone, this is Erica from Confessions of a Homeschooler, and today we're going to make some really cute Christmas gifts. They're really soft and fluffy pillows, and they're going to have a cute little pocket on the front to stick your kids' favorite stuffed animal in. So if you're interested in seeing how to make these stick around, they're super simple and they're really inexpensive, but they're great gift ideas. So the supplies that you're going to need for this are some fun fabric, and I used this relatively thin fleece fabric, and it's just nice and soft, but it's not too thick to be able to make a pillow with. So you also need some basic supplies. You'll need some kind of way to measure your fabric. You can use a ruler since we're just making pillows and they're square. I also have this really handy double-sided cutting mat that I've had for a while. I think this is a quilter's mat, but you can get these in varying sizes from your local craft store. And so I like to put my fabric on here. It makes it really easy to cut squares or rectangles or whatever you need to do. You also need some kind of thing to cut with. You can use some scissors as long as they're nice and sharp. I also like to cut with one of these rotary cutters because you can just put down your ruler and just go right along and it's really fast. You'll also need some pins and a little pin cushion. The pin cushion is optional, but it's handy. And you'll also need an iron to iron out your fabric and seams. And then the last thing you'll need is a sewing machine. Unless you plan on stitching these by hand, I would recommend a sewing machine. It's going to go a lot faster for you. So that's all the supplies, so let's get started. Okay, so I'm just going to start off by ironing out my fabric. It gets a little bit crinkly. You should always wash your fabric before you start making any projects, just in case it has a tendency to shrink or anything like that. So the next thing I'm doing is just laying my fabric out on my board here. And because they don't always cut it straight, I like to just trim off this edge right here. Now, they do sell clear, they're called quilting rulers, and they're nice and long and wide, and I lost mine, but I do have it somewhere, so hopefully I'll find it. But instead I'm going to use this as my guide because it's still basically a flat area, and that makes it a lot easier when I'm going to roll cut with this guy. So the first thing that we're going to do, I lined it up. I want my pillow for this to be, I'm going to cut it at about 20 inches by 20 inches. That will give me a little bit of a seam allowance on all four sides, and so I'll have about a 19-inch pillow when I'm done, which is a nice good size pillow. So I'm going to go ahead and just trim off this edge right here quickly. Okay, so as you can see, I have my pillow cut out, and it's 18 by 18. I cut it to the 19 here because I wanted to be able to see my outside lines so that I could cut it straight. And if you'll notice, I did cut both pieces of fabric at the same time, and so this edge over here is actually a solid edge. So when I'm sewing around my pillow, I just have to sew around 3 sides. So before I start sewing though, I'm going to cut out the little pocket that's going to go on the front just so I can get all my cutting done at once. So for the pocket, again, I'm going to cut out 2 pieces of fabric at once. It's just folded over like it kind of comes. So this side will be nice and solid. I'm going to cut it out at 14 inches by 11 inches, and that'll give me kind of a little rectangular pocket to put on the front. By the time you do the seams and stitch it together and all of that kind of good stuff, it'll be close to about 13 by 10 or 10 and a half by 13 and a half, somewhere in there. So let's go ahead and cut out this pocket real quick. I'm going to line up my ruler and just simply run this guy across. And here's my 11-inch marker. And these rulers are nice and handy because look at how easy that comes off. Every now and then you'll get a little piece that sticks like that, but not a big deal. Okay, so the first thing that I'm going to work on is the little pocket. And so as you can see, I just took my material and folded it so the right sides are touching, so the wrong sides are facing out. Okay, so I'm just going to pin along the edges, and I will leave a small little opening probably right here on this side over here so that I can flip it right side out once I do the edges. And the reason that I'm actually going to do a 2-layer pocket like this is so that it's nice and cute when they open up the pocket to put their stuffed animals in. I don't want to see a bunch of, you know, threads dangling and seams and that kind of thing. But you could, as long as you do like a nice hemline along here, you could do just a single thickness for the pocket, but I'm just going to do both. And I probably don't need to mention this, but as long as you put your needles in your fabric perpendicular to the way we're going to be stitching this way, so if you put your needles perpendicular to the way you're going to be stitching, most sewing machines can just stitch right over those needles, so you don't have to take them out before you hit. But if you're worried about it, as soon as you get towards the needle, you can just pull it out. So I'm going to leave this little hole to flip it right here. All my sides are pinned, and we're going to go ahead and sew this guy together. Alright, so I'm going to go ahead and leave about about 1/4 inch seam allowance right here, and I'm gonna sew right along this edge, keeping the material as straight as I possibly can. And as you can see, I'm just sewing right over my needle. All right, when you get down to the corner here, you can just simply manually stitch it, lift up your foot, and turn the material so that the needle is not moving, and then put your foot back down. So we'll just keep sewing. Right along this edge, and we're going to complete this going all the way around, leaving a small opening, like I said, just to turn the pocket right side up. So I'm right here to the end, and I don't normally suggest leaving a hole at the end. Usually it's better to leave your turn hole somewhere in the middle. However, since this is just a pocket and I'm going to stitch it back on the blanket, I'm not going to worry about it. So I did just get to the point where I wanted to stop. I hit the reverse button on my machine, and I just give it a little back and forth really quick to kind of seal the stitch so it doesn't come undone. Raise up your needle, pull it out, and cut it off. Now I'm going to take all of the pins out and flip my material. So I took all my pins out, and now I'm just going to, just a little bit at a time, start pulling my fabric through. And you just need to be gentle so that you don't rip your hole. Even if you do, you can stitch back over it, so it's not like a huge deal. But just get it all flipped so that it's right side out. And then once you have it right side out, I like to take either the tip of a pencil, or if I'm feeling lazy, which I am right now, I'll use my scissors and just kind of poke out the corners so that they're nice and sharp. And you can also, if your material is really thick, which this isn't, but there you can see you can get a nice sharp point there, you can also cut one of your corners off, and I'll show you how to do that on the pillow. But you just cut a little bit of the fabric off on a diagonal, and that way it makes the corner a little bit of a sharper corner. So I will finish this up, and then we'll get started on the pocket and the rest of the pillow. All right, so my pocket is all nice and turned out, and as you can see, I have nice corners. And then you'll notice that since you stitched a seam in here, it kind of just takes care of itself as far as finding where it needs to go. But just straighten out the seam so you've got it nice and folded in and tucked in. And then I'm going to just run over this with the iron really quick just to crease all of these seams so they're a little bit straighter. And then we're going to just set it aside. I'm not going to sew this up yet, because when I sew it to the front of my pillow, I'm going to do a stitch around it, and so it'll just take care of that seam at that time. Okay, so the next thing I'm going to do is take my fabric for the pillow portion, and then over here I've got my pocket that I've already stitched together, and I'm going to zigzag stitch the pocket on to the front. But since this is doubled up, I just need to undo it. And actually, I think I want my pocket opening at the top without the seam. So I'm going to place it like that, and as you can hopefully see on here, here's the top of my seam, here's going to be the bottom of my pillow, and I just want to position my pocket. I'm going to put the edge that I did not have to stitch on the top, and then the seams are all around these three edges. And again, here is my open edge, and like I said, I'm going to stitch that on, but I want to position my pocket so that it's about, what is that, 3 inches up from the bottom, and then about 2 inches on either side of the pocket. That way the pillow will go clear up here, and there will be room to tuck something in, so the pocket will be a little bit closer toward the bottom. So the next thing I'm going to do is just go ahead and pin this on here, and then I'll bring it over to my sewing machine, and we're going to do a fun zigzag stitch around these 3 sides only, leaving this side open for a pocket. Okay, so as you can see, we're all pinned on and ready to go. Alright, so I've got my pocket lined up. The edge of my foot is really right at the edge of the pocket here. I'm going to go ahead and place my needle, and then I'm going to do a little forward and backward zig so that I can get it solid there. And then we're just going to continue on down all the way around 3 sides of the pocket. Make sure you don't do the 4th side or you won't have a pocket. Alright, I'm at my first corner here, and I'm going to change it just the way I changed when I was doing the pillow. So I leave my needle in the material and carefully spin it. You want to be very careful not to pull the needle in any way, because they do break easily. So, and then we'll just keep on stitching. Alright, so here's our pocket. Hopefully you can see I did a cute little zigzag stitch around there, and I got a little bit crazy going back and forth on this one because I was trying to film and stitch, but this one turned out a little bit neater because I was paying attention. But as you can see, I stitched around all 3 sides, and this side was where my opening was, and so the zigzag stitching took care of attaching it to the pillow, and it also took care of my opening, so that's no longer an issue. And then I have this nice little opening up here to stick whatever your kids want to stick in there. For our gifts, we're going to buy some little stuffed animals and stick them in, and hopefully I can find a unicorn one to match this material. But let's move on. Now we're going to do the pillow. So the next thing you're going to just need to do is just fold your fabric back in half so you've got the wrong sides out. And just like the pocket, we're just going to try and match up all of our corners really nice and neat, and then I'm going to pin around the edges. This time I am going to be careful where I leave my hole, my opening, to flip it inside out, and I'm going to do it just about 4 inches down here on the bottom half. That way when we stitch it back together, it won't be as noticeable because this will be the top of the pillow and nobody really is going to be paying attention to down there. Alright, so I have set my machine back to do a straight stitch, and I've just lined up my pillow. I've got my foot again along the line of my fabric cut, so that'll give it about 1/4 inch or so. I'm going to go ahead and place my needle, do a couple of stitches, and then backwards all the way back to the end, and then have at it. Now it might look like I'm pulling, but I'm not pulling at all. I'm just kind of keeping a hold of the fabric so that I can keep it straight. Alright, I'm coming to my corner again, so I'm going to slow down just a little bit. Keep my fingers out of the way, and I'm just going to go to about where I think is good. Place my needle, lift up my foot, turn the fabric, put it back down, and keep on going. Now this is the side where I want to leave a hole so that I can flip my pillow back inside out. So I'm going to just kind of eyeball this here, but I think we'll stop right around here. I'm just going to do a little reverse stitch just to solidify it so that it doesn't come out. Cut it off. Then we're going to place our fabric about, I stopped right here, so I'm going to go about right here, so give myself about 4 inches. You can kind of eyeball this, but again, you want to just leave yourself enough space to turn your fabric. I did a little back and forth stitch there just to keep it from coming undone. Turn your pillow, place your foot back down, and continue on. And then when you get to the end, you want to kind of slow down just a tad, go back and forth a couple of times. And then for this one, I will just stitch right off the edge of my fabric. That way you don't have a little hole for stuff to be popping out. Alright, so we're back over at our work surface, and I have just removed the last of my pins, and I'm going to do the same thing for the corners on this. Being careful, I have white stitching, so you probably can't see it, but just be careful not to get your stitching, and just cut a nice little triangle shape off the edge of your corners, just so that we can have them have a nice sharp corner. And it's not as big of a deal on the seam corner, or the corner without the seam, but I still do it just a little bit. Okay, alright, so if you'll recall, I'm also going to just chop off any of these extra little threads I have here, but if you'll recall, I left myself an opening right here, and this is a kind of a smaller opening, but just carefully, you're going to want to just start pulling your pillow through. Same thing like we did with our pocket. I am again going to use my scissors to just kind of push out the corners of these guys and straighten out the pillow. We're basically done. After I do that, we're going to add our stuffing, and that's the other reason that you need a hole, so that you can add in a bunch of stuffing, and then we'll seam it up and we'll be done. So our pillow is all nice and squared out, and now I'm going to take this stuffing, and you can use kind of any stuffing that you want, but I'm going to just take a little bit of this stuffing and go ahead and start stuffing away and getting this thing nice and soft and fluffy. So I just take it in clumps and just slowly start putting it in. And since this is kind of a big pillow, it's going to take me a few minutes, so we'll just come back and catch up with you when I'm all done. Alright, so we're all done stuffing our pillow. As you can see, it's nice and fluffy. I think that I should be able to get hopefully 3 maybe even 4 pillows out of one of these bags, and since I have 4 kiddos, that kind of works out for me. And then here you can see our seam. Now you can do one of two things. As you can see, like the pocket, it kind of seams itself. It just folds in automatically where the other sides are folded. You can either hand stitch this or you can machine stitch it, and I'm gonna go ahead and try and machine stitch it because I'm feeling lazy, but just right along the edge. And you wanna do it as close to the edge as possible, just so that you can get a tight seam right there and it won't be so noticeable. But like I said, your pillow's gonna sit this way and your pocket's right here, so since it's on the bottom, people won't really be seeing that anyway. Alright, so as you can see, our pillow is finished, and I did manage to seam this with my sewing machine. It wasn't easy because the pillow kind of pushes out, but you can hand stitch it like I said, but it's still hardly even noticeable because it's on the bottom. And then we did get this cute little unicorn from our local craft store. You can find these anywhere, the mall, anywhere. But they're super cute, and Teeny Tot loves unicorns. It's her favorite, and so this is going to be a fun gift for her. So we just stuck this little guy in there. That's like his little sleeping bag blankie and pillow all in one. So I think this is going to be a really fun gift. And I have 4 kids and 3 nieces and nephews, and so I've got a few more pillows to go. All right, everybody, so obviously I've been busy working, and they are all done now, so we're ready for wrapping. I made all of these in one night, so they don't take very long. And when I made them in bulk like this, I ironed everything at once, and then next I cut out all of the pieces, and then I did the pockets, and then I stitched them together, and then I stuffed them all. So I kind of, instead of doing one pillow at a time, I kind of did them assembly line style. But I think they turned out super cute, and like I said, I hope you enjoy this tutorial, and we will see you next time.